Chambers, welcome to the studio. Appreciate you being here. We're gonna have a little conversation about a little bit of mental health stuff. Okay, so first for our audience, why don't you tell everybody who you are and how you got involved in that business?
Sure, yes. So my name is Melissa Chambers. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. My company is called Melissa Chambers Consulting, through which I specialize in dementia education and training, working with families, caregivers of loved ones or family members living with some sort of dementia diagnosis. I also work with buildings, communities, people who care for their patients or their residents, hospitals, physicians' offices, nursing homes, assisted livings, whoever really. And I also help people with that are looking to move to assisted living or some sort of a senior living, whether they have dementia diagnosis or not. So in a nutshell, I guess that's what I do.
And I know a lot of people, I mean, it's a really tough thing. You know, you get to
Sure.
know someone your whole life, and then in the waning ages that you watch that kind of go downhill in that department. My grandma, everybody has somebody they know in
Right.
every family that,
Right.
that this happens to. But why don't you kind of, the early on stages and the kind of stuff to look for, and you might have, like in my case, I had a grandmother that she lived completely alone after my grandfather had passed away, and she went downhill pretty quick after she was by herself, right? She had the company of a dog, but then she started getting paranoid. She started losing things, and eventually, we got her into a home at probably later than she should have been because she lived. I mean, that's got to be torture for a mind to have everything together for your whole life and then lose it all at one time. So.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I think it's something that, when people start to get concerned, either whether it's about yourself or about your loved one, it's so hard to even think about. I think our minds just immediately put us in denial. Like, this certainly can't be happening to my mom, or
Right.
this certainly isn't going to happen to me. Like, I'm not going to let this happen to me. And then we keep seeing these changes, and then a month goes by and then we see something else happen and we're like, oh my. And it's really such a hard thing to even think about,
Right.
let alone start a conversation about. But yeah, aging in general, I think, is so hard. Like, just to see ourselves getting older, our loved ones getting older, and then, you bring in this whole possibility of some sort of a dementia diagnosis, and it's just like, you feel like your whole world is collapsing around you, And so a lot of people think that, dementia is just a memory problem, like a memory disease, which to a certain extent it is memory, but it is actually a brain disease, a disease of your brain. Just like if you have congestive heart failure, your heart is not working properly. Well, if you have Alzheimer's or some other sort of a dementia diagnosis, your brain is broken. It's not working right. And so when we think about all the things that our brain controls, that's everything.
Yeah.
And so memory is one of them. And that is, short-term memory is one of the things that, oftentimes we see, not all the time, but oftentimes we see, our loved ones are starting to forget things. Like, we just talked about this 15 minutes ago, and now we're talking about it again. Or, they had no idea that this happened yesterday. Or, they're not remembering from breakfast and it's only mid-afternoon. A lot of times also we see personality changes. Our loved ones are just doing things that they never would have ever done, or they're acting a certain way, or they're saying certain things. And, and so we're like, what's going on? And, oftentimes I think we blame, it's just old age. Well, they're getting up there, we
Right.
say things like that. And I think oftentimes the doctors do that also. And a lot of times it is the normal aging process, just like as we age, we see physical changes, wrinkles where we didn't really have them before,
Right.
or gray hair or no hair. Those are physical changes,
Right.
normal, we expect them. There are also normal age-related changes with our brain that we should expect. We're not going to remember every single thing, and that doesn't mean we have dementia. But, if you have a certain amount of symptoms, it's good to get it. You should get checked. And we shouldn't be afraid to have these conversations, because the sooner we get checked, the better. Oftentimes when we see symptoms of dementia, it could be depression. So many people these days have so many things going on. They're stressed about a lot of things. And, a lot of people have depression. And, that's sort of like a thing that we don't want to talk about, but a lot of times depression and dementia sort of are almost identical, the symptoms. So if you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor what's wrong and you get treated, and it is depression and you get treated, that dementia part of it sort of goes away. And then, so some dementia can be reversible. Sometimes it could be a vitamin deficiency, or, a thyroid problem, or, many things that could be reversed and fixed and helped. You fix the problem and that goes away. But if it's not, and if it is some sort of dementia diagnosis, Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, whatever, the sooner you get that treated and the sooner you work on those things, the better also. So, it is scary, but we just need to sort of try to have those difficult conversations. And
So correct my correlation here. I watch a lot of people, that, especially if you have, a job or a function that takes a lot of cognitive, bandwidth. And then you retire, you stop doing those things. And I watch so many people decline very quickly once they aren't doing their normal regimen. Is there any connection between those two things?
Well, a lot of it is when we retire, depends on the type of person it is. If we retire and we just we're just sitting around in our house and, whatever, there's some people like that. They do things, but they're, most of the time they're just kind of, hanging around, that, they don't go back and have another job. There are those people that retire and then go get another job, and they stay active and they're still around people. And I think part of that is the staying active part and the socializing. I never realized truly how important socialization was until I had my very first job in an assisted living. It was unbelievable what happened to people that were living at home alone. People in their 80s, let's say mid 80s, they're living home alone. And what you look at the four walls. My grandma used to always say, "I'm sitting here staring at the four walls again." Like, what do you do when you're home alone?
Right.
There's only so many things to do. And then, they move and they're around all these people that are similar ages, that have similar life experiences. You can't help but start to talk to people, because you're around them all the time. And like, I have had so many families say, "Oh my God, like, it's like I have my old mom back. Like, she just like came to life, or my dad, I can't believe, I never thought he would be doing these things. And he's like, he loves talking to these people, I never realized how important socialization was. So I do truly think that is a huge aspect of it. But, they do say one of the things to do to try to keep your mind active is learn new things and, keep your brain active. And, so many people think, oh, well, like, I'm going to do a crossword puzzle every day and that's going to make everything okay, And that's great if you do crossword puzzles, you can continue doing them. But when we say to, exercise the brain and keep the brain active, it's more doing something different than what you normally do. So if you do crossword puzzles every day and you love them, that's fine. But try a Sudoku. I never can say that right, but the number one, because your brain doesn't do that every day.
Right.
Or, if you do that every day, then try a crossword puzzle. Or, learning new things, like going to classes or going to a little seminar about something totally unrelated to what you do. If you're in healthcare, go, learn about, I don't know, a computer or, something that you're just not used to. Talking to people, having conversations, just like things like that, things that your brain is not used to doing. If you're right-handed, try to do a couple things a day with your left hand, just to make your brain think. And, so when we say to try to be active and keep your brain active, it's more things that you're not used to. So when that retired person, kind kind of stops doing things, and if they're not trying to keep their brain active, and if they're not around people a lot, you know, you can't help but think maybe that would have something to do with a little bit of a, you know, downfall.
Right. And so you said that sometimes with vitamins and then putting some strains on the brain, you can reverse some of this stuff if it starts going in that direction.
Yeah, so a lot of people get confused, and if you don't mind, I'll just straighten it out
Sure.
real quick.
Yeah.
A lot of people use the term dementia and Alzheimer's like interchangeably, or a lot of people, I can't tell you how many people have said this to me. Well, my dad he has dementia, but he doesn't have Alzheimer's yet. It's not that bad. And they think that it's like dementia until it's to a certain point, and then all of a sudden it's Alzheimer's. And that's really not the case. Dementia is a general term. Dementia is a group of symptoms. And so you go to the doctor with you're exhibiting dementia, you know, you're having these group of symptoms. Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia. So dementia is sort of like the umbrella term for these symptoms. You go to the doctor with these symptoms, and he tries to figure out what these symptoms are. Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia. Vascular dementia is a type of dementia. Parkinson's can have dementia with it, doesn't always have to. Lewy body, you know, there's like over 120 different types of dementia actually. Some of them are reversible. If you go to the doctor with these dementia symptoms and you get diagnosed with depression and you treat the depression, like I said in that example, then it goes away, it's reversible. But that's not the case for like Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, Lewy body, those frontotemporal lobe dementia, those are all irreversible. Right. But, you know, if you do have some vitamin deficiency and then all of a sudden these go, you know, that's what I'm talking about. So I think it helps to know specifically what dementia actually is, you know, when you're thinking about it, because yes, that can be reversible. Alzheimer's disease, unfortunately, is not reversible.
Okay. And one of the hardest things, there was one person I was dealing with that got paranoid, would say certain things were happening, like somebody's stealing from me or someone's sneaking in at night or something's happening. Like, so their brain's obviously telling them that something is happening and they absolutely believe it. But as a like trying to help somebody, how do you establish what's really going on and trust that when you know that other things have faded in that department?
Yeah. So it's really hard when someone's like, you had mentioned your grandma was living alone.
Yes.
And, you know, so if she's thinking that, if she keeps telling you guys that her neighbors are doing this to her or stealing her, like, how do you know? I mean, you don't really know. I mean, that's the answer, I guess. You're not going to really know. But if you know that they are having these, you know, hallucinations or delusions or suspicions, you know, which could all be, you know, when someone has, let's say, Alzheimer's disease, that is totally sometimes something that happens. They become very suspicious. You know, unfortunately, it happens to people that they're sort of the closest to. So, you know, mom, dad, husband, wife, you know, siblings, those are the people that they're going to blame, that are going to say like, oh, you took all my money, or, you know, you got into my bank account, or you stole my checkbook, or you stole my wallet. And if you think about it, like the way we are today, you know, we don't have dementia. If we're having a bad day and, you know, you talk to your spouse or your parents or your siblings, you're going to be like nasty, like, oh my God, can you believe this happened? Right. Yeah. If you talk to someone that you've never met before, you're going to be nice. You're going to put a happy face on and you're going to have a conversation and you're not going to mention a thing about your bad day, right? That's how we are normally. We're like that with the people that we're closest to, because they're not going to stop loving us if we're right. complaining or having a bad day, right? Well, that's how we are normally. So that's normal that they are going to be suspicious sort of about the people that they're closest to, because they're not going to say that about a stranger that they don't even know, right?
Right.
And so it's really hard to decipher what's real and what's not. Now, if it's you that they're being, you know, that they're having these suspicions about, you obviously know what you did and didn't do. But if you have a loved one that's living home alone, like your grandma was, it is really hard to try to figure out, what's going on. So
Yeah,
whether
because from their perspective, that's a real thing to
oh,
them,
it's
and they just told you that somebody is stealing or hurting them, and then you're just like, "It's okay, mom." That got to be confusing as can be.
right. And so, I think a good reaction or something to think about, like, so if someone is listening and they are, having this situation, saying it's okay may not be the best thing because like you just said, that's totally real to her. That totally happened. So think about it. If you, again, normal without a dementia diagnosis, in your mind think that someone came over and stole something, your neighbor came over and stole something, I mean, how are you going to feel about that?
Right.
You're going to be panicked. You're going to be mad. You're going to be upset. You're going to be scared. Whatever your reaction is, you're going to want that thing back that you think they took, right? Well, so does she. So just if someone's telling you, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it,
Not taking you serious.
that's going to make you mad probably,
absolutely.
right? So, when people living with some sort of a dementia diagnosis are having these, I guess what we refer to as behaviors, whether it's agitation or hallucinations, suspicions, whatever it may be, we try to focus on the feeling behind it. So if I think that someone stole my purse with my wallet in it, with all of my credit cards and my $100 bill that I had in there, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be panicked. I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, someone's going to steal my identity. Someone's going to charge up my credit cards. I'm going to be panicked,
So now, is it worse if you like install cameras or show them that what they had in their head wasn't real? Or
no.
are they like, oh, I had it wrong?
Yeah,
or is that
no.
worse?
That's never going to happen because their reasoning, their brain no longer has the ability to reason.
Okay.
It's not there. You can talk till you're blue in the face. You could say it 1,000 times, but it's never going to happen. They don't have the ability to reason anymore. If it's truly, let's say, Alzheimer's or something like that, they just do not have the ability to reason. So if they think that the sky is green all day long.
Right. You proving it to them is not going to help it.
You have to sort of move into their world. They're never going to be in our world again, sadly to say. But it's so much better if we just kind of like roll with it, we cannot reason with them. We can't say, Mom, the sky's never been green, or,
Right.
you don't even have a neighbor. Your neighbor's 3 miles away, or whatever. Like that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like you can argue. There's no sense in arguing because they cannot understand that. Even if you show them on a camera, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
You'll be part of the conspiracy, I'm sure.
Exactly.
after that.
You will
so
probably
now
be.
what you guys do, I'm assuming that you do a good bit of training the people around those people to handle and understand and look at their perspective so that they can take care of those people that are outside of the home.
Yeah. And, with this diagnosis, it's so complex. Like you have to, it would be really hard to be a caregiver, whether professional in an assisted living or you're, someone in your home or a relative, if you don't understand anything about the disease at all. It's different than any other diagnosis, I feel like. You have to understand some things about it. We can't change the end game. We know what's going to happen, unfortunately. But the journey doesn't have to be completely negative. It doesn't have to be like all, bad. We can change the way that looks with education, with understanding. Again, whether we're talking about professionals in a community, in a senior living community, or if we're talking about loved ones, you have to understand what's going on. In that instance that you just spoke about, if you're trying to show them in a camera that didn't happen, like that's not going to work out for you.
Right.
It's going to be bad all the time, every time. And if you're just a lay person who has no reason to understand anything about dementia, that makes total sense what you said. Put a camera up and show them. It's right there in their face. This did not happen.
Yeah.
But so in other words, you have to learn about it so that you can understand that maybe that's not the best way to handle that particular situation. Why would you ever know that if you don't have a reason, to,
Right.
It's just not, normal knowledge that, you would know. So it is super important, in my opinion. So important. Education, just understanding. And that is what I do, when I'm working with families. I mean, sometimes we just start with, I'll pull up a PowerPoint and just go over like sort of part of a presentation with them, show them a picture of the brain. Like someone who has Alzheimer's disease, their brain actually shrinks. And so to see a picture on a screen side by side, okay, this is what a normal brain should look like. And this is what a brain with Alzheimer's disease looks like.
Wow.
I mean, the normal brain should weigh approximately about 3 pounds. A brain with end-stage Alzheimer's disease on an autopsy when they're looking at it is like 1 pound, could be potentially.
Wow.
Not it's everything.
An extreme case. Yeah.
It is not, everything is not exactly the same. But so 2 pounds when you only started with 3 pounds to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really significant. So showing someone that picture side by side, that is a huge thing right there, because, when someone has this disease, most oftentimes they look normal, just like me and you, that they don't necessarily have all of these physical problems. If you see someone in a wheelchair and they have oxygen in, and like, you automatically know. I mean, your brain is telling you automatically, oh my gosh, something, wonder, maybe they have problems with their lungs, or maybe they have heart problems or whatever. Like, you're automatically thinking something's wrong with this person. They're going to need assistance. If you're looking at a person that has Alzheimer's and they're fine, they don't have a cane or a walker or anything, and, you're not going to think a single thing about them. But when you realize, oh my gosh, like, this is what's going on in their brain, like, after you have that picture in your head, you always have it in your head. It's not something you forget. And so it helps you to understand, like, okay, like, this is not just a normal person, and it may not just be a normal interaction. And, so oftentimes in the very early stages, you can have normal interactions, but you just have to know when something happens or when a situation does arise, even if it is in the early stages, you may have to adjust a little bit. If they do start talking about, you're having a normal conversation and then all of a sudden they do say something off the wall, just adjust, roll with that, and again, you don't know that if you don't know that.
Right.
We don't know what we don't know.
So, having been around it for as long as you have, what do you wish that what people who've never been exposed to it, what do you wish everybody would know about this disease and that situation?
Well, I think the biggest thing is for the caregivers to know they're not alone. And that's, I think, a huge thing. They, when you go to the doctor and, you get this diagnosis, your loved one gets this diagnosis, you're just like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do now? And I feel like most of the time they go home and they don't know.
Okay.
The Alzheimer's Association is a huge resource. You can go online, you can learn a ton of things, and Melissa Chambers Consulting can be a huge resource too. But I think just the biggest thing is just that they're not alone. Like, there is help. There is someone that they could talk to, and someone who could sort of guide them. Sometimes I work with families and literally they just want to talk to me every week. They just want to tell me what's been going on, and it sort of makes them feel a little bit better. There's support groups out there, and so really, truly, I do think just the main thing is that they're not alone, and, to get education wherever that is, whether it's with me or someone else, it doesn't matter, but just to get the right education to help you understand.
Okay, Melissa, why don't you give everybody your phone number, how they would get a hold of you if they need to?
Sure. So the website is melissachambersconsulting.com. The phone number, 330-623-7150. And, on the website, we have a ton of information, a bunch of different resources. There's a Facebook page, Melissa Chambers Consulting, in which I try to do, education every week. So there's a bunch of videos they could go back and look at, and, that would be helpful. So yeah, I'm happy to, talk to anyone or just even point them in the right direction or give them some resources. So they can get in touch with me anytime.
All right, Melissa, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it.